Over the past few months, the Foreign Policy and Defense Departments of Ukraine, having enlisted the support of the State Department and Pentagon lobbies in the leadership of NATO member states, continue to prove the need to provide them with the main Leopard 2, A4 family tanks, as well as more promising and highly protected Leopard 2, A5, 6, 7 as part of a new package of military technical assistance. On the other hand, not wanting further escalation in the Eastern European theater of operations, as well as the loss of the shock component of tank fleets, the defense departments of European countries demonstrate a very careful approach to the possible provision of Leopard 2 tanks to Kiev. Meanwhile, under the influence of a number of factors, the political situation in Europe is constantly changing, and what until recently seemed unlikely, today invariably takes practical shape. Against the background of deliveries of 122 BMP-1 ammunition for small arms and automatic weapons from Greece to Ukraine in exchange for Berlin providing more highly protected Marder BMP, the probability of sending the first batches of early modifications of Leopard 2 at 4 main battle tanks, consisting of about 2 or 3 battalions 60 to 90 vehicles, has increased. Later, with the use of certain tools, Leopard 2, A4 from the Polish army can also be transferred to Kiev. This option is particularly relevant against the background of the beginning of the counterattack for the supply of the Polish armed forces of the K2 Black Panther MBT, within which the first company of 10 promising vehicles has already entered service with the Polish army. T92B3M and T90M versus Leopard 2, A4 and Leopard 2, A5. To date, the Leopard 2, A4 is a relatively outdated model compared to Russian main battle tanks, but this problem is quickly resolved through not the most complex modernization. In case of placement of additional beak-shaped passive booking modules on the frontal armor plates of the tower by specialists of the German company Krauss-Maffei-Wegmann, the level of protection of the standard Leopard 2, A4 can be brought up to the Leopard 2, A5 indicators. As a result, the OPU may have machines at its disposal that have an equivalent resistance of the frontal armor plates of the turret from armor-piercing feathered sub-caliber shells of the order of 830 to 850 mm and equipped with smoothbore guns IH-120, L-44. What does this mean in relation to tank duels with the Russian T-72B3M and T90M's breakthrough 3 seconds? The T-72B3M main battle tanks of the 2016 and 2022 model have classic cast turrets with additional multi-layer dimensions of special armor made of reflective rubber steel sheets with an equivalent resistance of 540 mm. Taking into account the installation of dynamic protection elements for C2-2 contact 5 seconds, the resistance increases to only 630 to 670 mm. Which is enough only to protect against relatively outdated German 120mm armor-piercing shells of the DM-43 type, and even then only in the case of firing by the Leopard 2, A4-5 crew from a distance of more than 2,300 meters. In tank duels at a distance of less than 2,000 meters, such a reservation does not provide reliable protection of the front projection from armor-piercing feathered projectiles DM-43. Not to mention the more modern DM-63 with armor penetration located at an angle of 0 degrees to the normal armor plates of the order of 750 to 770 mm at a distance of 2 km. Upgraded Jet T80BVM, MBT have a higher protection of the front projection of the tower from DM-43 shells, as well as partially from DM-63. The equivalent durability of the frontal armor plates of the towers of these machines increased from 500 to 520 to 750 to 770 mm, which was achieved by equipping the T80BVM with wedge-oriented elements of the 4C23DZ relict, reducing the armor penetration of kinetic projectiles by 1.5 times. The T80BVM VLD has a slightly lower equivalent resistance against BOPs about 680 to 700 mm. which provides reliable protection only from the DM-43 projectiles specified in the previous paragraph. In the same turn, after the initiation of the explosive of the frontal elements of the DZ contact 5 seconds and relict during the battles. Standard T72B3M and T80BVM armor plates will be exposed identical in terms of durability to T72B and T80BV 540 and 520 mm, respectively. Here, at the very time, pay attention to another magnificent car that took part in demonstration shooting at the Alabino Training Ground as part of the Military Technical Forum Army 2018 seconds. We are talking about a deeply modernized main battle tank T90M, which received an update package in accordance with research and development work on the topic Breakthrough 3 seconds. Some observers of Western analytical agencies will argue that this car is a relic of the past, pointing to the constructive relationship of the chassis and MTO T90M with the ancient T72B. In fact, this relationship not only does not worsen the combat qualities of the tank, but also provides full interchangeability of structural components on the battlefield with the T72B3M tanks already in service. In particular, the T90M is unified with the latest in support rollers. The upgraded 1130 horsepower diesel engine V92 seconds 2F and a number of other parts. The V92 seconds 2F engine provides a 48-ton car with a quite decent specific power of 23.55 horsepower per ton, which corresponds to the indicators of most versions of the M1 a second. At the same time, it is much less capricious in conditions of high dustness of the atmosphere and on the desert terrain. The most important trump cards of the T90M are hidden in the unique indicators of its armor protection. As in the earlier Nizhny Tagil T90A, AK Vladimir, the Object 188mm uses a modern welded tower with developed frontal armor plates of the tower located at an angle of 55 degrees from the longitudinal axis of the bore of the main gun, the physical size of which reaches 980 to 1000 mm in the central part, 650 mm at the level of the multi-channel sight the gunner Sosnayu and about 420 mm in the area of the gun mask. Considering that the T90M's tower is covered with a relict dynamic protection kit, represented by 4 C23 modules with the possibility of a 50% reduction in the penetration effect of the cores of armor-piercing feathered sub-caliber shells, the equivalent resistance of the tower at firing angles of plus or minus 5 to 10 degrees will be about 1250 mm in the central parts of the frontal armor plates, 850 to 900 mm in the area of Pinyu and 700 mm in the sector of the cannon mask, a relatively small area about 70 to 80 cm wide. Conclusion: most of the frontal projection of the T90M's turret is completely protected even from the most modern German DM-5363 armor-piercing shells, while the gun mask can only withstand the hit of the outdated DM-43 bops. The prospect is naturally alarming, but it is definitely better than in a critical situation with the T72B3 and T72B3M. The equivalent resistance of the T90M VLD from bops due to the use of the relict can be 900 to 950 mm, which will also confidently protect the mechvode from the DM63 projectile when using the Contact 5 EDZ. The VLD had a resistance of about 830 mm. The ability to resist tandem cumulative warheads allows the elements of the 4C23 dynamic protection relict to fully protect the tank from TOW2, a type ATGMS available to the APU, even at safe maneuvering angles of plus or minus 20 degrees along the hull and plus or minus 35 degrees along the tower. Moreover, a 90 to 120% reduction in the penetration effect of the cumulative jet due to the principle of two-way throwing of armor plates will protect even the vulnerable zone near the cannon mask from TOW2, a ATGMS. What about the rockets? Nevertheless, the situation is extremely vague with the protection of the new T90M from tactical anti-tank missiles of the Hellfire II family, including Brimstone and JAGM, as well as FGM-148 Javelin and BGM-71° anti-tank missiles. The latter are equipped with a shock core-type warhead capable of attacking tanks in the most weakened sections of the upper projection. The first strike, diving at high angles of inclination, BGM 71°F due to the flight directly over the target, projecting the spread of striking elements of high kinetic energy on the roof of the tower or the upper body armor plate. To protect the tank from such an impact, active protection complexes ARENA, M or Afghanet are needed. Official sources claim that the T90M as well as other tanks of the T80BV, or UNT90, families can be equipped with these means of protection. But in fact we only observe the presence of remotely controlled combat modules with 12.7mm 6P49 mount cord mount machine guns, as well as additional multi-channel panoramic PC sights Pan-Hawkeye, which in terms of protection from high-precision weapons will not make the weather. Well, let's see if CAS will appear on serial T90M tanks.